we had used up everything that we can regenerate on the planet in the space of a year. This year, the date is even further forward. It's July the 29th. So we are moving forward year after year as to how much we can keep up with. This is why it is so important to start looking at the way we do things. And the important thing is to remember, because it's actually an opportunity, there is so much that we can do to add value to our business, because we hear all the time the current global situation, the environmental challenges, the pollution, the materials, the impact. It all comes round to us, and we see images like this all the time. It's obviously affecting the wildlife, it's affecting our oceans, but the conversation is now even more than that. You might have seen recent reports that they're now finding microplastics in the snow of the Arctic. They're finding microplastics in the soil, which is used to grow our food. It's not just in the water, it is out there, it is everywhere. And here's the thing, I don't always like to focus on the negative side of things, because we see a lot of that. It is everywhere. But we never can become complacent on what it means for us, because the conversation needs to be human health and being able to move forward in the way we operate, the way we do business, the way we survive, and how we can still keep growing and sustain ourselves. I'm going to take you through a couple of things. One of those is the difference between circular and linear economy. And you'll notice one of the things that I will always come back to is the number one question that you need to consider with every single thing you do. And that is start with the end in mind. So, again, to answer your question, so I understand the different perspectives, who here knows the difference between circular and linear economy? Wonderful. So to give a really simple explanation, because it's probably one of these terms that you hear, another buzzword, but it's so much more than that. A linear economy is literally, you manufacture something, you make something, we buy it, goes straight out the other end, chucked away, ends up in landfill. We don't need to know about it, it's not our problem. But it is. The reason why we really need to be very conscious of these two principles, the differences, is because the linear economy is very much focused and based on fast consumerism, cheap materials. I mean, I think probably fashion is probably one of them. You go out and you think, great, I've got a deal, it's so nice and cheap. A couple months later, it's already starting to fall apart. The reason why it's so crucial to start considering circular is there is so much more opportunity for you to extract value at every single stage of the supply chain. So circular, and I can probably explain it best for regen, funnily enough for what we do, is when you make a product or you buy something, whatever it might be, use it, but then it doesn't just get tossed away. It is based on high value and quality materials, quality product. Because again, you can gain so much more out of just one sale. You can keep on extracting the value out of it time and time again. So, for example, the milk bottle is a perfect example there. This would typically be sent away, shredded down, washed, turned into pellets, manufactured into whatever item. This happens to be our regen wool that we manufacture. But if you're just recycling once, it's not quite circular. So whenever we talk about recycling, again, we've got to consider that you're not just delaying something getting to landfill. It's when you can get something manufactured, recycled once or repurposed once, but then back in the loop. So you reduce the impact on landfill as much as possible. But I think one thing to really highlight, because we have so much terminology thrown at us for different levels of marketing, because people still need to survive, we still need to have jobs, we still need to operate, move forward and grow. But the one thing to really be aware of is terminology, because there are so many different descriptions for every single thing, shape and form that you can see, which tells you this is the best environmentally friendly thing that has ever existed. You need to buy this. You're doing something good for the planet. But again, start with the end in mind. Even just a couple of examples. Biodegradable products or compostable. It's a really good example, and it's fantastic that people are thinking of doing things differently. But if you go to an event and you've got your biodegradable plates, your biodegradable cutlery, you'd be thinking, fantastic, they're doing something really good for the environment, they're making a really strong choice. And for them, they possibly are, and this is where education is key. Now, once you've finished your plate of food and you've scraped everything off into the organics bin, when you get to the main bin, because no doubt you've probably already got recycling and general waste, which bin would you put your biodegradable plate or cutlery in? It wouldn't be recycling, because it can't be melted down and made into something else. Because it's a composite product, it's not a pure product. So it's building up landfill. Compostable, something to be considered because that can break down. But every single thing you do, if it's not a pure product or if there's not the processing in place, what's going to happen is, again, it's just going to keep on building and building and building up in that landfill, which is, again, more resources, natural resources being used to make something else that's, again, just another single-use product. So it always comes back to the waste hierarchy. So it always starts with the reduce, reuse, then recycle. You've always got to go through those actions first. The boxed water. If you've seen the new boxed water out there, that's, well, it's been around for a little while, that's another interesting term, because we're so busy trying to avoid the PET single-use bottles that we're desperately trying to find other options. And this is great. I've always said keep searching, you never get disheartened, but education on every single thing you do and everything you buy is really important. Because when you look at the boxed water, it's not necessarily the best option. It will be advertised as that, absolutely. But the reason why you might have other liquids transported in boxes, for example, wine, it might not be the type of wine you enjoy. But liquids like that transported because it reduces the cost of the freight. It's lighter. However, single-use bottles, they're already in plastic. It's already one of the lightest weight materials that you can get. And PET, even though we always say reduce, PET can be recycled. It's a pure grade resin. It's the number one whenever you look on your bottles. So this is, again, another really example of the greenwashing. You're going from a product which we do need to reduce, or the single use, but to exchange that for something that's packaged and something that's very difficult to recycle, because it's, again, a composite of different materials. It's not easy to just separate and repurpose or process. So it's thinking about every single action. So every single area that you can go for reusing, that's the one thing you need to consider. And even opportunities within your business or events that you go to. If you can imagine, you go to parties and so on, you've got all the single-use plates, get swiped off, big events you might be hosting. One really great example of this, and Cairns Regional Council does it very well, is Eco Fiesta. They actually have washing stations. So it goes back to the old school. Do you remember parties? You'd have everyone in the kitchen washing up together. It's part of the connection, it's part of the community, and build those relationships. And doing that type of thing, you're chatting away, so there's so much more to it to consider. Another factor, again, terminology. I'm not going to get into the climate change subject, that's a whole other ballgame, but the thing is, the connotations, as soon as you say that term, everyone will have a different perspective on it. Some people obviously see the science and they can see the impact and they understand it. Others will have different perceptions from their experience, but always, whenever you're looking at anything like this, just think of the real issue. Remove the jargon, remove the terminology, think of the real issue, because does it happen that we are in a very, very negative situation because of our consumption, because of our practices and disposal. And the answer is yes. It always comes back to the main issue. But technology in recycling is a really interesting thing, and this is one thing that we very much work on, because we actually are now manufacturing recycled product. We are not recycling directly yet. And the reason why it's a key distinction is because there's a lot of talk about the waste industry at the moment, and a lot of people out there's a lot of good people in the industry doing the right thing and working hard. They're the ones at the end of the line that deal with everything we don't want to touch. But when we bracket everything, I constantly hear people say, recycling is not the answer. It needs to be last, it needs to be, there's a lot of negativity around it. And here's the problem, is because recycling is termed as a description for many areas along the whole supply chain. So to give you an example of that, you might have seen California, 600 recycling plants have closed down. It's actually collection centres. Recycling is the process of when you get a product, shred it, wash it, and turn it into the pellets. You at home, the technology, if you start to consider, you are sorting. It will naturally flow onto the way you do things, because it will give you the descriptive language for what you're doing even in your workplace, in your home, because you'll be thinking, right, I've got to have all these different areas because I'm sorting the different materials. Breaking it down, because when we put everything all in one description, one terminology, it makes it very hard to find our way through, especially when we're having all these multiple things, multiple directions, TV, papers, social media. It's very hard to navigate through. So break it down and think what you're actually doing, what the description is. So that's a really important factor for the way we do things. But what does it mean to you, even within business? And this is why I would say there is so much opportunity at every single level. It's really interesting once you start to look at how you can extract from different areas of everything you do, even in the home. If you look at the actual value supply chain, everything is very linear. Things come in, they go out. It's the way we've done things for so long. But we need to go back to the way of when we manufacture something or when we sell something. It's the onus of taking that back, the responsibility of what we put out and how it can be dealt with, because you've got people that spend thousands on surveys for what they make. They want to know the good points, the positives, the pros, cons. If you get one of those loyalty programs in place, not once are you selling something once or putting out something once, you're getting it back again and extracting another level of value. It's really interesting. I speak to a lot of different groups, from business to community, kindies, but the one really interesting group is the seniors. Because whenever you start speaking to them about circular economy and doing things differently, and all the reuse and repair, and getting things back at high quality, they'll say, but we were doing this. It wasn't called circular economy, it was just called doing business. It was called building relationships. It was customer service, part and parcel of what you do. But then we change things to obviously meet our levels of consumption. So when you look at the value chain on every single level, even if you apply it to your own business, you can start to break it down, and you don't have to change the world within one sitting. You can literally write down all the different areas that you have and start with one thing. Start with the lowest hanging fruit, even what is most cost effective. Because there are so many policies now coming into play. You've got obviously, we all know about plastic bag ban, contained deposit scheme introduced last year, the waste levy in July this year. And this is all to help us guide in the right direction of getting as much out of landfill, as much out of our bins as possible. So that's one direct, easy saving for you, is your cost reduction. So the more you can sort into being processed in different areas, the less pickups and collection you've got. But it's even if you're in the building or construction industry or anything else out there that you consider that you have to quote for whatever you've got to drop off at the dump, whatever it is, that's now $75 a tonne. So when you're in the commercial industry, that adds adds on a whole new component. So it makes sense to consider different things. Logistics, packaging, can it be returned? Can it be reusable? Point A to B, and I think we all know about freight up here as sort of last on the line. Are you making most use of where you're transporting things? It's even in the workplace itself to sort things in your tea room, or the actual housekeeping habits. So for us to give you an example, everything that we manufacture is a resource. There's all value on the floor. So if we are manufacturing a tank, or we're grabbing something from aluminium, what we'll do is we'll batch everything based on the material so that we can collect it, and that can all be recycled individually, because nothing is wasted. When you start talking about nothing being wasted, again, it's not going into landfill. You can get more and more value again and again out of it. Then we've got things like events, how you market your business, because I guarantee if someone is operating in a more environmentally friendly way than you in this climate, people may explore who else is out there, and it's shown that there is a trend now for 88% more people, more customers, will actively seek out someone who is behaving in a really environmentally and socially conscious way. So we're going through a really interesting time at the moment. Technology, you've even got things that, software, you're probably all on this, but software is another one, reducing the paper trail, improving communication. So this is simply a different way to look at everything you do and improve efficiencies. So instead of the make, the take, the sell, and out the door into waste, it becomes these loops where it comes straight back into what you do again and again. So you can look at how you do things, what you can bring back into the business, how you can get more value out of what you do, and you're the experts in your own businesses, so you'll be able to see what you can do. But always start with the end in mind. How do you interact with your customers? What do you produce? Even what you buy in? Who are the suppliers that you're using? How do they package things? There are so many aspects on every single level, and all you need to do is literally start writing it down and start somewhere, because I guarantee once you do that, the ideas flow and you can start to see more and more about just how much you can do. So I'll leave it with you because, this is something, I'm very passionate about, and I know a lot of you are too, and it's something that we should be, because this is how much that we depend on our future. It's how we continue to do things, how we can continue to grow, move forward, because even if you think of all the businesses out there that do manufacture single-use products, they still offer employment, they still offer security within communities, they still offer economic support because they offer jobs. So when we're talking about fast change and doing things differently, we've also got to appreciate there is a time factor, there's an understanding, there's a transition phase. Because if we all of a sudden change things immediately, it's going to get quite interesting. So it's to look at what's coming into play, because we've got a lot at the moment happening. You would have seen that a lot of the doors are closing internationally. We all know about China. The other year, India, China's going to have the full ban, but then we had Scott Morrison up just the other week, which is fantastic, talking about a complete plastic export ban. So we have opportunity domestically to grow the plastic industry and to look at how we are dealing with things, because there is a use and a resource out of everything we produce, but this is why we also need to get all the single-use items out of circulation, because with that, you can't melt it down as such to produce something stable on the other end, because you can never guarantee the integrity of what will come out. This is why we very much encourage you to look for the pure-grade resins, the 1s or 2s or 3s on the bottles, because then you know what you're dealing with. If it hasn't, then you need to wonder what's going on in it, because I guarantee if something is cheap, there's a reason it's cheap. So, as I say, within anything you do, within the home, within your family, events, your marketing, if you have any balloons that go out, any of the thinner plastic bottles for marketing, your branding, that's not going to last that long. You get high quality, guaranteed, and it will have your business name out more multiple things that you can do. And that's just as short-term and long-term impact. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand you back over to Nick. And I hope I've left you with a bit of food for thought today and just to go back and start creating some action. Thank you.